First up, we're going to be talking about Landman.
The lamest superhero there ever was.
Yeah. Yeah. So Landman is a new series on Paramount Plus about the wonderful world of oil production.
Indeed. And the titular Landman, played by Billy Bob Thornton. Now, we
Yes.
didn't watch the entire thing. We decided we were initially going to give it a single episode, like we usually do with these streaming shows with an hour-long episode. We'll just go with the theory of, okay, let's give this a little sample. Let's see if it would intrigue us to watch more.
Yeah.
And I think we both kind of came away from the first episode going, what's the show about again?
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't really get a very good sense of what exactly the driving force behind the series is. So we ended up going 2 episodes into it, and it's basically a drama, a soap opera, kind of mixed with social commentary and uh, what would you say? Just overall, kind of like
A deep and abiding cynicism.
yes, very much so. Um, so I guess we should get to kind of the overall overarching, story of the movie or the series rather. So Billy Bob Thornton plays Tommy Norris, and he is a landman, works for a major oil company out in West Texas, Midland, Odessa. Which, if you've never been to Texas, you don't know much about that whole world. That is where all the oil is, out in West Texas.
Good old Permian Basin.
Indeed, yes, and some of the richest people in the world live in Midland and Odessa. Well, actually, Midland, not so much Odessa. All the field workers all live in Odessa.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know a little bit about that because having had family members who've worked in the oil industry and family members who lived in Midland at one time, I can confirm that. But yeah, so basically, what Billy Bob Thornton's whole job is that he goes around to different places where there's oil and talks to the owners of the land and says, "Hey, I want to lease your land to drill for oil, and we're going to pay you, however much, a couple $100,000 a month." To drill for oil, to lease your land to drill for it, and you're gonna be rich, and we're gonna be have a whole bunch of oil to sell to everywhere, and basically, Tommy is a very rough character.
Yeah, rough is putting it a little bit mildly. He he's kind of like your cantankerous conservative uncle, except he at Christmas, except he's always had 2 or 3 beers, even though an- he's sworn off of alcohol.
Yeah,
Actually, that is a funny little detail. Is he is he's a recovering alcoholic who says, I don't drink alcohol, but he still drinks Michelob because it's basically water.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, there's even a scene where he's at the bar, and the bartender's like, there's alcohol in there, and he said, "All right, I'm gonna drink 6 Michelobs right now, and then come back tomorrow and drink 6 whiskeys, and you tell me if there's a difference."
Yeah, look, there's more alcohol in orange juice than in these things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
now, what's interesting is that it looks like there's an inciting incident early on that I don't think was actually an inciting incident. Because I think they just wanted to show off how humdrum carnage is out in the oil fields.
Yeah. Are you referring to the plane?
I'm referring to the plane because
Yeah.
the plane seems to be set up by the opening scene where Tommy, aka Billy Bob, has been kidnapped and is being roughed up by some cartel people because, they own the land, but the mineral rights were retained by somebody else, which has now been sold to his company. He basically goes, look, you don't you don't get involved in my business. I don't get involved in yours. Here's the money we'll pay to offset the environmental damage we're going to do. Leave us alone. And if you don't agree to this, we can still do whatever we like here. And we're going to make sure an ice facility gets put right over there.
Yeah.
So definitely plays hardball.
Yes, he does. Yeah. And then we flash forward 6 months later, and they show these cartel guys loading what looks like it either a white drug of some kind from the
Yes.
plane to a van, but then
They have landed in the middle of the highway.
in the middle of the highway that they built, that the oil company built so that they can move about. And then another oil tanker from a different company just rams right through them.
Yep. Explosions, fiery death, all sorts of nonsense.
Yeah, and then you come to find out that the plane was actually from Billy Bob or Tommy's company, and it was stolen a few months before.
It's like, well, why didn't you report that to the insurance company? Because pieces of equipment disappear all the time.
Yeah, and then
they show back up.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because of the size of their operations.
Yeah. And but as DB pointed out, nothing really comes from it, at least not in the first episode.
For the first 2 episodes, yeah.
First 2 episodes, yeah.
Like as he put it, like it's just very blasé about this explosion / all these deaths on his place. So,
yeah.
Like the only as of episode 2, the only thing it serves is to show again how chaotic and crazy life out in the oil fields can be.
Yeah.
Because I guess it's like anywhere else where you have a combination of rough people and money. It's an interesting combination.
Yeah. And so then we meet our other cast of characters throughout the 2 episodes. One of them is Tommy's ex-wife, Angela, who's played by Ali Larder. She was in, I remember her from Heroes. She's been in a few other stuff, but
is she the cheerleader?
No, she was oh, hey D Ryan, good to see you.
Hey man.
No, she was the different character.
Okay, I never watched Heroes, so the cheerleader is the only one I know.
The cheerleader, no, she's older than the cheerleader.
Okay,
but yeah, they have even though they're divorced, they still flirt with each other on the phone. It's very weird. And then we also meet Tommy's son. What was the son's name? Cooper, who is starting. He's dropped out of college, and he's decides he wants to work as in the oil fields, much to his father's chagrin. And he's working with a crew of a family. It was an uncle and 2 nephews who were Hispanic.
Yep. Yeah. And then to add to it all, his ex-wife has sent his daughter, Michelle, Ainsley, played by Michelle Randolph, who I don't recognize from anything. Honestly, the only actor besides I didn't even recognize Billy Bob because of how like haggard he looked.
Yeah,
intentionally. I kept waiting for his character to be introduced because I knew he was in this show. But I'm also not like I haven't seen Billy Bob in anything for a while, so
Yeah.
But the only actor I recognized from anything was Michael Pena, who is the fast-talking guy from Ant-Man.
Yeah.
He's one of the oil workers, but his 17-year-old. I don't know if they ever used the phrase jailbait, but that's clearly the role she is playing in the series.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Is it comes out with her boyfriend to live with them for a bit.
Yeah, and the boyfriend is this like he's this phenom, highly sought after high school uh, football recruit, quarterback. Um, and of course he's a typical 17-year-old guy who just
Right, with he kind of a microcosm of the whole oil industry, lots of access to lots of power, which is first you get the power, then you get the women, then you get
yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
he just hasn't gotten to the money phase yet. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wait till he gets to Alabama, and then that's when the
yeah,
money will kick in.
yeah. So and I don't necessarily think I want to do a blow by blow of the events that happen.
Yeah.
Just because okay, so this is a Taylor Sheridan show.
Mhm.
It very much reminded me of Yellowstone,
Mhm.
except that I would say that Yellowstone had a more driving immediate conflict because you had the whole Native American versus the whatever the name of the ranchers was
Yeah.
versus the town. Like you had some very clear zones of conflict there. I thought at first it was going to be the oil company versus the cartels, but really it's just Billy Bob versus the world.
Pretty much, yeah. And at the end of the second episode, it was kind of gearing up towards a Billy Bob versus his boss. That's John Hamm.
Hmm.
Um, and they kind of implied that they have like a history together. But Billy Bob works for John Hamm, and there was an accident. Let's just say I don't want to get too far into spoilers, but there was an accident, and it's kind of being implied that it's going to be pinned on Billy Bob, which he was none too happy about.
Right. Right.
So
It's like
there's a little bit of that conflict there, but
yeah, that's
yeah,
probably where things are going. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's just
They
that like you've had 2 hours, we could I'm of the opinion that I should have a very clear idea of why I want to continue to watch this show after the length of a movie
yeah,
in total watch time.
yeah. I think it delves. It's a lot of soap opera stuff. A lot of the interpersonal conflicts seem to be the driver of the series. Not unlike another old show from the '80s that was also centered around an oil, which was Dynasty. Uh, kind of similar feel to it, but maybe not so much. But I mean,
So let me ask you this. I never really watched Dynasty. I got the impression it was almost entirely focused on the upper crust people. This seems to be more interested in the on the ground, well, landman.
yeah, that I would say that's true. Yeah,
So I would imagine that John Hamm's life, from what we see of it, would resemble Dynasty if he was the main character.
yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
But he isn't. So let's talk about Billy Bob for a second there.
yeah,
He plays that cantankerous, like late middle age working man, chip in his shoulder, divorced with 500,000 in debt. Like he's weirdly given up on life. It feels like, but he still works very hard, which is an interesting combination.
yeah. Well, I think he's one of those guys that if he stopped working or if he did like fully give up, he would die basically.
Like those people who retire at 65, putter around the house for a week, and then just don't wake up one morning.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah, that fits.
yeah. And what's interesting too is that he's kind of this he's almost like a walking encyclopedia. He has all this knowledge of all this different stuff, and it's just like he lectures. So like he's got these two roommates, and he lectures one of them when he's eating a Pop Tart. He said, those things are going to kill you. And he's like, well, you smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not what's going to kill me. It's all the sugar. Then that's going
Right,
to kill you.
right. Yeah. In Japan and Italy, everyone smokes, and lung cancer isn't even the top 10 causes of death. So it's all that sugar and crap we're eating that's killing us. So I
Yeah,
don't want to hear about it.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, that's a good way of describing him because also later on, like there's a viral scene that's been making the rounds online, which is how I first heard about the show, where he basically lectures somebody about how pointless, or from his perspective, how pointless wind power was.
yeah, yeah. And there's another one too where he's kind of like it was about fracking, um,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's it seems to be the highlight of the show is him is Billy Bob lecturing liberal white women about how the world really works.
Yeah. Which, okay, so let's talk about audience here
Yeah,
before we talk a little bit about. There's one thing that okay, I can be a little bit squeamish about injury in shows sometimes. Uh, but I think that this one actually deserves like you deserve to know that it might be happening going in with a spoiler warning. So we'll talk about that in a sec.
yeah.
But I'd say in terms of the audience, if you enjoyed Taylor Lautner, or excuse me, Taylor Sheridan's Taylor Lautner.
Ooh, ooh, wow.
I watched Twilight's Rift Tracks many times. Anyway, if you enjoyed Taylor Sheridan's other media, like what was that movie we watched last month from him?
Hell or High Water.
Yeah, if you liked Hell or High Water, if you liked Yellowstone and the other shows, this is very much in keeping with that, in the sense that, and I can see why this would appeal to a large audience, because it is basically a soap opera designed for people who work on their feet for a living.
Yeah.
Because I notice that he always goes for industries that are big and powerful, but aren't, like, they're very related to resources, like cattle or oil or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah. And even like what was that? He's got a couple other shows. Well, he's got Lioness was another one. Which I think that's a spy thriller show with
Hmm,
yeah, it's with like Zoe Saldana, Nicole Kidman, Morgan Freeman.
okay.
Mm.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
sounds vaguely familiar.
yeah, and of course he got all the Yellowstone spinoffs too, all
Yep.
the prequels.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's yeah, I would definitely agree that it's definitely in keeping with Taylor Sheridan's style. And also too, like if you're like me and you had family members who worked in this industry, it'd be interesting to watch just from the standpoint of, oh, so that's what they had to do when they were working in that working in that world.
Yep. I'll say there's, like, for me personally, I think I could enjoy a show about that context, but I don't think I would continue watching, just because the only character I really sympathize with is his son Cooper, who's trying to make his own way, and his dad is trying to shut him down and make him leave the industry.
Yeah. Which again I sympathize with because my own family members were telling me don't get into the oil industry because it's just because of how volatile it is.
In both a financial and a literal sense.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Now, the thing that I actually wanted to almost give the public service announcement about, like, hey, this is something you'll have to deal with.
yeah,
This is a spoiler. So a moment that almost made me shut off episode 2. He ends up injuring himself. Billy Bob ends up injuring himself, putting out an oil fire. Like, just breaks his pinky finger on one hand,
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
in the hospital. And he decides, you know what, I'm not going to come back. It's just the end of my pinky finger. I've never really used it anyway. I don't want to come back for like 12 more surgeries so you can bleed me dry. Just give me a
Yeah.
scalpel. He
Yeah.
just proceeds to cut off his own pinky finger and toss it in the trash.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, which again, it's not unusual for those guys to lose digits. You see a lot of this going around, like ring finger or pinky finger. Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't usually do the deed themselves.
That's true, yeah.
When there's nothing medically necessary about it, according
Yeah.
to the doctor who is sitting right across from him.
Yeah. Well, and two, and on top of that, like what I've heard, like one of the most painful things that could ever happen to you is losing a finger.
Yeah, he just kind of no-sells it.
Yeah, it's just like, ugh. But yeah,
I-
it is a graphic scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's like, in the show is symbolic of like how much he's leaving himself behind in the fields, like what he's giving up parts of himself, but ugh,
Yeah.
that just icked me out. Like I said, I almost shut off the episode right there and said, Daniel, don't bother watching episode 2. But
Yeah.
he'd already watched it, so I just soldiered on.
Sorry.
No, like there was nothing that graphic again in it, but I also have the personal bias that while you can have interesting shows about unlikable characters, I feel like there has to be something admirable about them on some level.
Yeah.
And I just don't find anything admirable about Tommy Norris besides his work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
What's your take on it?
Yeah, he's he's a tough guy to like. Yeah. But I may keep watching it just out of curiosity. Just just to see where it goes, and if there is like an overall overarching conflict that does emerge eventually, or if it's just one long soap opera.
Yeah, and maybe that's my biggest thing with it is that it's got that classic streamer pacing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Make TV pilots a thing again.
Yeah. Don't make me watch 3 or 4 episodes to really get to really figure out what's going on in the show.
Yep, anime episodes get the 3-episode rule because they're 20 minutes long after opener,
Yeah.
or opening theme and whatnot.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is on Paramount Plus, in case anyone's interested.